Harold is working in Australia at Premium Greens. He's going to tell us all about Premium Greens, the situation in Australia, how the sales is going in the rest of the world. So hereby I welcome Harold. Harold, welcome.
Good morning, John. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Good afternoon.
Yeah, it's afternoon here. We're almost going home.
Yeah. So we are actually recording this because at the normal time we are going live. It's already time to go to bed for Harold. So that's why we recorded it a bit earlier. So first of all, how are you?
Yeah, personally, I'm doing really well. Most people here are complying with all the rules that the government is putting in place. So over the long Easter weekend, everybody was urged to stay home. Some people, I don't know, around the Gold Coast, I think they issued a couple fines for people that were still going to the beach and trying to get out of the house. But it's pretty expensive if they fine you. So yeah, most people are just staying home as much as they can, working from home. Schools have been closed they closed them a week before the holidays, and they're still closed. And we just got an email earlier today saying that they're going to be closed for 5 more weeks into term 2. So I guess it's all moving online. We're still waiting for all the details. So yeah. Government is taking it pretty seriously.
Yeah, and they have to. I mean, we see it all over the world what's happening, so we can't take this not seriously.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. It just proves that Australia is the best country in the world again to live in because our infection rate is really low, and so far we're doing pretty good. So that's good news.
Yeah, that's good to hear. So can you tell us more about Premium Greens for the people who don't know you yet?
Yeah, so Premium Greens, we're based on the beautiful Sunshine Coast here in Queensland, on the east coast of Australia, about 100 kilometers north of Brisbane. And this company originated somewhere in the early 90s, where they actually started harvesting some foliage out of the forest.
Yeah.
And over the years, there was no rules or regulations back then, and it was sort of a free for all.
Yeah.
And throughout the years, this company has actually developed all sorts of legislation and techniques and procedures how to protect the environment. So we because our aim is to be as sustainable as we can.
Yeah.
And a lot of those procedures have actually been adopted into legislation over the years.
Yeah.
So we're always working very closely with the Queensland government on how to do stuff. And
yeah.
I mean, it's in our best interest to do everything as sustainable as possible, because we want to come back after a couple of months and harvest the same areas again, of course. So
yeah.
And then the foliage that grows around the Sunshine Coast is unique in the world. Doesn't grow anywhere else, so therefore there's a market for it.
Yeah, because it's really or almost growing everywhere. So you see here, this is just a road where you live, close to where you live, and
Yep.
so we can see all types of green already growing over there. But that's not allowed to pick anymore, right?
No, well, this particular photo was made in a national park, and national parks you can only go there and have a look at it, but you can't harvest in there.
Yeah.
So that's over the years that the government has been converting more and more forest into national parks, which is a bit of a challenge for us, of course, because as soon as it goes to national park, you're out. You're not allowed to harvest there anymore.
So, and how do you cope with those regulations? Because you're still picking from the forest. There's no grower growing, for example, the umbrella fern, or
no. We've been trying for many years to grow umbrella fern under controlled conditions.
Yeah.
And it is possible. I mean, we have done it, but it's very, very hard, and it's also an issue to get the quality right for whatever reason. Where when it grows in the forest and it has all the natural symbiosis with the other plants and trees and the natural tree cover and all that sort of stuff, it does really well.
Yeah.
But when you take it out of that environment, we can get it to grow, but yeah, to make it a commercially viable operation would be very hard.
Okay. So can you tell us a little bit more about the situation in the flower industry in Australia? What's happening at the moment, or is there something happening?
Well, there's always lots of things happening, of course. We personally, or we as Premium Greens, we're not that involved in the domestic market, other than that we sell to the local wholesalers and a few florists around the southeast part of Queensland. But what is happening at the moment is that there's no flights, or very, very few flights. So that's a problem for the guys that are actually importing. Same as that is a problem for us trying to export from Australia, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody's sort of wondering what's going to happen with Mother's Day, because I think a couple of weeks ago everybody was afraid that we're going to have no sales for Mother's Day at all. It was all going to be dead in the water. But we have seen a sort of an acceptance, I guess, with the new situation. Some shops have moved more of their business online. Other people were already active online. So, and a lot of people sitting at home, and what are they going to do? They're actually going to fire up the internet and see if they can buy some stuff online.
Yeah.
And because they can't visit their mums or their grandparents or whatever, so they decide to order some flowers online. So some florists are more positive than they were a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, what's going to happen with Mother's Day? Yeah, I don't know. We could see a spike in the prices of the domestic flowers, but it's anyone's guess at the moment, I guess.
Yeah. So you're talking about florists. So they're still open, the flower shops in Australia.
They're still allowed to be open, but some people have closed their shops because it's just not a viable thing to keep it open. But they're still working out of their shops to fulfill their online orders. So, yeah.
Okay, so if they can, if they want, they can still be open.
Yeah, they still can trade. At least in Queensland, they can. Yeah.
And in terms of supermarkets, do they normally already sell flowers, or are they selling flowers now, or they skipped flowers?
No, supermarkets have always been, but have been selling flowers for a long time here. Yeah. And the first couple of weeks, there was also a bit of a decline, I think, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
And I think everybody's pretty positive to go towards Mother's Day again, because supermarkets they are still open, of course, and that's where people go to get their groceries and hopefully grab a bunch of flowers on the way out.
Yeah.
It's becoming a bit of a chore to go to a supermarket now here, because you've got to wait in line outside until you're allowed to go in. There's only a certain amount of customers allowed in the store at any given time. I drove past it the other day and I said to my daughter, it looks like former Eastern Europe, in the good old days. Everybody waiting in line to buy some groceries. It's crazy.
Yeah, we see the same in Holland, actually. You're only allowed with a number of people per square meter. So that's why people have to wait in line. It's a strange period.
Yeah, I reckon those supermarket trolleys have never been cleaner in their lives, because everybody's wiping them down with disinfectant, and it's an interesting time we live in.
Yeah, and for Europe, we're lucky that it's summer, so if we wait outside, we're not standing in the rain and the wind and the cold. So
well, it's summer here all year round anyway, so that doesn't bother us.
Yeah, that part of Australia it is. So about exports, you were saying you don't have enough flights.
Yeah, exports actually is very difficult for us at the moment. When it first all started unfolding, everybody cancelled their orders. No one wanted anything anyway, so that's okay. But then after, I think about 2 weeks, we started seeing the first orders from Japan and Korea, for instance.
Yeah,
and it's just it's virtually impossible to get stuff on a flight. And if you can, the freight rates have just gone, I don't know, it could be anywhere from 5 times to 10 times what we used to pay before. And then even then, you don't get any guarantees you're actually going to be allocated the space, so your stuff could still be sitting at the airport and not be uploaded.
Yeah.
So that's a big problem. We see the same thing going to the US at the moment, even though the US is, of course, is dealing with their own issues at the moment. But again, leading up to Mother's Day, it's pretty important to get stuff in there. The situation on the trucking has stabilized in the US, so you can get your stuff from A to B.
Yeah.
But again, even today, we were trying to get some space into LAX, and it's just horrible. Yeah, that's a big problem at the moment.
So actually, the demand is there. I will not say that the demand is like normal, but you just can't get it out of Australia.
Yeah. So there is definitely in Asia there's a bit of demand, and it's not great, but I mean, at least we're doing something, and it's just a problem to actually get it out. And we're getting the first request from Europe again as well. We used to send to Europe like clockwork every week before this whole thing before this whole thing started, and now so we've had a gap of about 4 weeks, I guess, and now the first sort of requests are coming back in. Okay, what can we do? Is there any space available? So that I've been chasing that today, and it's again it's not impossible, but you're paying through the nose. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah, it is. It's terrible, but it's the new situation. Let's hope that the flights will start up again soon.
Yeah, well, that's here in Australia. That I mean, the news is changing every day, as you know. But here in Australia, they're talking about putting a 6-month ban on international travel, or international travelers coming here. And so that's going to make it even harder, because most of the freight is actually leaving this country on the passenger.
Yeah.
The passenger flights, as you know, there's not much going on freighters. So yeah, if they don't allow any international travelers coming here, that means those flights are not going to come back into service. So then we're sort of stuck to the freighters, and there's not many freighters around, and it's hard to get on it. So it's that's going to be an issue. Same for the importers. To come back to what you asked me earlier, I know that they're doing some trials with putting some flowers in containers and then containerizing them into Australia, but you can't do that with roses from South America. So it's
no, and you need a big volume because you need to fill up the container as well. And for Mother's Day, maybe that could be okay, but that's probably already too late. But just like a normal weekday, which importer can handle such a amount of flowers in one go?
Yeah. There'll be a few, I'd say, but still, it's a problem. And from what I'm not in the containerized freight normally, but what I'm hearing is that there's a shortage of reefer containers because they're all still stuck in China.
Yeah.
So it's not. Yeah, it's one problem after the other. So you spend a lot of days or a lot of hours in the day trying to sort out all this stuff that used to be really easy, and now it becomes a big, massive task to try and get something done.
Yeah. In Australia, you already told you have a lot of greens which only grow in Australia, or even that part of Australia where you are located. Can you tell us a little bit more about the products?
So the area where we are is a subtropical sort of area. So we carry about 12 lines. In Europe, there's about 3 to 4 lines that the people should normally be familiar with: umbrella fern, steelgrass, flexi grass, sea star fern, which is our Australian version of what a lot of people would know as coral fern from South Africa.
Yeah.
But what we've got over South Africa is that we actually have the stem length, and it's a bit more elegant than the product coming from South Africa. But normally, what we cater to the higher end florists and designers, which is another problem at the moment, because the retail chains don't tend to use our product much.
Yeah.
And at the moment, what's happening in Europe is the guys that are busy are the online guys and the retail.
Yeah.
And we don't really fit that model, unfortunately, because, like I said, we normally service the higher end designers, the higher end florist shops, weddings. That's what the Australian product is normally being used for predominantly. There's some retail chains in Europe that use our products on an on-off basis, but predominantly it's the higher end design area.
Yeah. What we see here is somebody's harvesting the umbrella fern, right?
Yeah. So what you're seeing there is someone actually harvesting umbrella fern in the forest. So our boys go out in the forest every morning in a 4-wheel drive. We've got special licenses to actually go into those forests. So like you or me, we wouldn't be allowed to just go in there.
Yeah. It's not
they
easy
know
to go
where
in
they're
there,
going.
right?
Sorry?
It's not really easy to go in there with a 4x4, as we see now.
No, it's actually it can be quite challenging, and I've done a bit of 4-wheel driving over the years, but if I have to go with the guys into the forest, even I'm holding on to the dash and hoping that we come out alive.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So and it can take anywhere up to 30 minutes, 45-minute drive to get to where they're actually going to harvest that day.
Wow.
And if you go back to that photo that you just showed earlier, you can see that they're actually doing most of the work in the forest because the fern is quite soft. So they start harvesting by first daylight, and they got to be out there before the sun gets too strong and before it gets too warm. So that's So they're cutting the fern and immediately watering it down, making sure it all stays nice and moist. Make sure they come back here to the main facility on time, and then here at the company they actually go through it and grade it and then sleeve it till the end product. Yeah.
And if there's an order, they start cutting it, or you have an estimation of how many orders you get. How do they do it?
Well, we do now. Before COVID-19, everything was, or not everything. Sorry, before COVID-19, we had our main lines. We would cut sort of continuously because there's always orders coming in for it. So you're trying to stay a day or 2 days ahead. And that's simply because there's a lot of customers that go like, hey, can I have this, that, and the other, and needs to go on transport that same day.
Yeah.
But now in the new situation, we only cut to order because there's just no. We're not going to cut it and then have it sit here after, and then having to throw it out after 2 weeks or something. So
yeah, it's a pity.
But and with the freight situation, even all our customers are now already used to. Okay, here's an order. You tell me when you can send it. Oh, it'll be next week somewhere. Oh, okay. Well, let's do that. Whereas a month ago, they would have gone like, what? I need going out tomorrow.
Yeah, I need it yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. So the world has changed in that sense.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll get back to a normal situation pretty soon. But who knows?
Yeah, it depends a lot. I just read that France is closing down another month. So that will take some time. Let's hope after that it will be easier and we still can get a bit of the wedding season.
Yeah.
So we have some
Let's
sales
hope so.
and things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So another big product is steelgrass.
Yeah, that's steelgrass would be our biggest product in Europe. Where in America it's not. In the USA it's definitely it's only one of the lines. Whereas in Europe that's probably our main product, next to umbrella fern. And those trees that you see on that photo there, they could be, I don't know, some of them could be up to 100 years old. So it's the way we harvest it, and I think you've got a photo of that as well. Over the years, we have developed, or years ago, they've already developed a method of harvesting that doesn't damage the plant.
Yeah.
Because that guy that is harvesting that particular tree over there, I would estimate that tree is over 100 years old. So the last thing you want to do is kill that tree, of course. Because first of all, you don't want to kill it. And second of all, we want to come back and harvest that plant again and again and again and again, because that's in our best interest. Because as you're harvesting a plant more regularly, your foliage also stays cleaner, because it obviously grows in the forest, so we can't use any pesticides or anything, even if we wanted to. So it's in our best interest to make sure that plant survives. So, and actually, you just saw him cut it off.
Yeah.
So we don't cut out the heart because a steelgrass plant actually grows from the center.
Yeah.
So we leave that there, and we only cut around the center pretty much. So that we sort of have 3 layers. The lower layer, which is already starting to rot and whatever else, so we don't need that. And then the center you don't want to touch because that's where the plant actually grows from.
Yeah.
So we only cut around that new growth.
Okay.
And it may look a bit funny when we've harvested the plant, but the plant doesn't mind at all. It has no impact on the actual plant at all.
Oh, that's
which
great.
is good.
Yeah, which
And then
is good.
depending on the conditions, like we've had a beautiful autumn here, lots of rain and scattered rain, so not like big rainfalls of 200 mils a day. That all just washes off. But we've had nice, consistent rain, and it was nice. The temperatures were pretty good. We had a lot of heat still going into the forest, so that creates a perfect growing environment, of course. So that's we're really happy with that. And so we're looking forward to a great spring in Europe and wedding season and Mother's Day and whatever else. And then COVID-19 happens and everything goes out the window.
Yeah. We in Europe, I will not say almost forgot, but it's not the year for Australia because it started out, or already 2019, it started out with a lot of bushfires.
Yeah,
as well.
So we lost. So for us, we harvest pretty much, not all up the east coast, but a pretty large area on the east coast of Australia, and the bushfires. I don't know if you can remember that, but that was more south of here. So we didn't personally get affected by it because we're north side of Brisbane, but down south into New South Wales, there was numerous hectares was lost of forest or burned.
Yeah.
And so we lost a lot of our harvesting areas over there, which is that's obviously that's an issue.
Yeah.
I guess now there's very little sales, so it's not that big of an issue anymore.
No, okay.
And it and it will grow back. So that's as long as you get the rain, and the forest actually it looks terrible after a fire, but for the actual forest, it's not necessarily a bad thing, Australia has been burning for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I don't know if it's true. I thought it was steel grass, or if it burns, the stem stays alive, and it will start growing again after the bushfire. Is that correct?
That is correct. So those steelgrass trees that you saw earlier on the photos, I mean, they could have been in a bushfire, I don't know, 20 times, 30 times. So and all the foliage just burns off.
Yeah.
And then as soon as the bushfire is over and you go there after, I don't know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you had a bit of rain on it, you look in that center of that stem, and there's the new foliage popping out.
Wow.
So and with umbrella fern, it's the same thing. As long as the fire, so what we say here is, as long as the fire is not too hot.
Yeah.
And that is an issue with the latest bushfires in 2019 because it was so dry. You got a lot of wind, and when that fire becomes big enough, it sort of creates its own wind.
Yeah.
And then the temperatures in those fires are creeping up, and that damages the forest more than anything. But when it's a sort of a low temperature fire going through, the forest actually quite likes that because it just burns all the fuel load. What we say, and that creates a natural sort of fertilizer. You get a bit of rain on there, and the forest just boom explodes again. I mean, we had a fire around my house in 2017, and if you drive past that area now, you would never know it had been on fire.
Unbelievable.
And it's been like that for over a year, I would say. So you just can't.
It's crazy. You can see how the nature adapts to things.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what we are seeing here? What are they harvesting here?
So what you're seeing there is the harvesting of Flexi grass, which is one of our other main lines, and that actually grows on the pine plantations here in Queensland, north of Brisbane. It starts north of Brisbane and it goes for a couple of 100 k's up the coast. There's a lot of pine plantations, so those forests are harvested every, I don't know, 25 years or something, and then they plant them with pine trees. And at a certain, when those pines are starting to get around that whatever 10-year mark, all that undergrowth starts becoming pretty prolific, and one of those products is Flexigrass.
Okay.
And so as long as those forests are just growing, we can harvest the Flexigrass from underneath it. The only problem is when they actually decide to start logging those areas, we lose our production areas, of course.
Yeah.
And then it takes a long time for it to come back.
Yeah, but I think they also produce in a cycle, right? It's not that they're harvesting one time in 10 years and then you have to wait 10 years. Probably the next year they will be in a different area to harvest again. Or to
yeah,
cut
so we know those forests, that all the areas where we harvest, we know that when those forests get to about 25 years of age, at some point they're going to log them. It could be another 12 months, it could be whatever, but you know that they are going to log those areas. So hopefully they stagger it enough, so by the time they sort of log one area, we can go back into another.
Yeah, that would be great. I think it's a great product actually, and the designers of Flower Circus also love to use it. We used quite a lot during the last exhibition we had just before the whole lockdown in France. And we made quite some interesting things with it.
Yeah, I mean that's always the beauty of our products, and I'm of course I'm a bit biased, but what our products enable a designer to do is just to separate themselves from anything else. You know, the normal salal or the normal pistache that is used by everybody that supplies to the supermarkets. A florist won't be able to compete with that anyway on price. No. So they need to do something else to show what they're worth and where that extra value is. And our product is that it just fits perfectly into that model.
Yeah. And what we see as well, you can play with lines, you can do a lot of things, and even wedding bouquets with the umbrella. Just with a few leaves of umbrella, it already gives a really exclusive look.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So.
Another product, what we see here.
That's called Koala Fern or foxtail. They call it foxtail locally here, but we sell it as Koala Fern. And it's just a real nice. That's actually my favorite product, if anybody cares. But it's just such a nice, fluffy, soft fern, and it's just beautiful. And people either use it as the whole stem, or they can take all the tufts off it. And I've seen people make jewelry out of it, and or flower jewelry, and like brides being able to wear it as earrings and as necklaces, and that's a lot of very creative designers around the world that use that product in a completely different way. It's
And this is also a product that is sold a lot in Europe, or not? Not yet.
No, not so much in Europe, because there's a few customers that are quite regular customers and use it quite regularly. But in America, we sell a lot of that. Yeah, the US market for us is much more evenly spread than the European market. In Europe, we've got a few lines, and they take quite a volume of it. Whereas in the US, we sell pretty much everything.
Okay.
It's a different market. Which is good, of course, for us.
Yeah, but I think there's still a lot to be achieved in Europe.
But in Europe the competition is fierce, so there's a lot of cheap product available in Europe, whereas in America that's a bit different.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter if it's cheap or not. I mean, with just a few leaves of umbrella fern, for example, you can make the look much more expensive of a bouquet. So it earns itself. I mean,
that's what we're always that's what we've been trying to promote for years and years already is to educate the florists. Say, okay, well, yes, our greens are more expensive because you just saw what we have to do to go and get it. The hourly wages here in Australia are a lot higher than in other countries and other parts of the world. Everything needs to be flown, so it just the nature of it just makes it a more expensive product. However,
Yeah.
By using it the right way, you can separate yourself, and you can, like you said, you can take a normal everyday average bouquet, you add a couple of exclusive stems to it, and all
Yeah.
of a sudden you create all this value that wasn't there before. So that's
Yeah.
but it's sometimes it's hard for us to get that message across to the florist.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what we aim
So,
to do.
yeah, on your website, I think you got, we can see it behind you, but I also put it here, premiumgreens.australia, premiumgreensaustralia.com. You can also see the whole assortment you've got, right?
Yeah, everything is on that website, and there's also, of course, there's a contact us. So if there's any questions or people, we do get a lot of, for instance, we do get a lot of inquiries, predominantly from the US again.
Yeah.
Florists that have been on our website, like the product, want to buy it, and then we just find their nearest wholesaler,
Yeah.
and contact them and make sure that we can ship it to that we start shipping to that particular wholesaler, so the florists get access to the product.
Yeah.
And that's the same. We can do the same thing in Europe with all the partners that we've got around Europe. So
Yeah.
we always encourage people to get in contact and ask their questions. And great.
Okay. Harold, thank you very much. I learned a lot
You're
again.
more than welcome.
Do you have
Sorry?
some, I learned a lot again. So do you have something to add to this story? Did I forget
No,
something?
not really. What I will, as you've mentioned this before, this is a pre-recording, and just that's those two reasons, because of the time, and also I've told you privately that my internet at my house is very poor at the moment. I mean, I love living in Australia, but that technological development here is not as good as it is in other parts of the world. I should say. So we wouldn't be able to do this live stream from my house. But I will be, when this is broadcasted on Facebook, I will actually make sure that I'm on Facebook. So if people put comments down below in the video, I can respond to it tonight. That's no problem.
Okay, great.
All right.
Again, thank you for joining the show. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And good luck.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you very much for watching.
Okay.